All right, let's see if we are live. We should be streaming by now. I really hope you guys can pick us up. Now we're streaming on two platforms. We're waiting for the last platform just to log in, and then we'll start tonight's episode. To everybody here, I trust you are going to learn something tonight. I trust you are going to find something in our discussion tonight that is really going to make a difference for you and that's going to shift you. So if you're a coach, if you're an aspiring coach, if you're a speaker, any person in self-development, any person that's not in self-development, tonight, hopefully, I touch one soul and I make one person become limitless. This is Limitless. It is a live stream every Monday, South African time, 7 o'clock, right here on this platform that you are watching us right now. So this is our second episode. Last week we started off. I enjoyed last week. I hope you guys enjoyed last week as well, for those that did see it. Last week we started off and we spoke about the invisible cage. And tonight we are going to take that a little bit further and we're going to ask a simple question. What do I need to break out of that invisible cage? We touched on the concept that we create limiting beliefs in ourselves. That it's, and I use the example of a baby elephant being chained down with a peg into the ground. And even if the elephant actually grows, it still is controlled by a chain that it can break quite easily, a peg that it can pull out quite easily. And that's the invisible cage we build for ourselves because of our own limiting beliefs. So I thought it fitting to not leave the fact that we have limiting beliefs hanging, but to really move to a different level and start sharing what can I as an individual do? What can I as a coach or a therapist or someone in personal development or possibly even just an executive or someone that just needs to be shaken into the realness of who I am to just step up my life and truly become limitless. So that's a recap of the previous session and just to give you guys a bridge on how we get into this session. So tonight we're going to talk about something interesting and I hope you guys are ready for this because I've been like really waiting to be able to share this message with everybody. So the topic of tonight, or the concept that I'm going to talk about, is we live in a world, and I posted this on someone else's platform today, actually, because I was so excited. I didn't want to wait to start sharing this message. It's a very simple statement I want to make. In a world where everyone is trying to be perfect, polished, and very professional, the most radical thing that you can do in a world where everybody's trying to be perfect, to be polished, to be professional, the most radical thing you can do is be real, just to be real. But here's the secret to that statement. It's most probably also the most profitable thing you can do. So let's unpack that a little bit tonight. Let's just unravel that statement because it sounds simple to make, but I think there's a little bit of depth behind it. So tonight I'm going to really try and unpack that into a little bit of depth for everybody. So we do live in a world where there's this massive competition where everybody's really trying to be perfect, where people come onto platforms like this. I mean, I look at my platform, my background's got to be perfect. I've got to wear the right shirt, the lighting's got to be right. We kind of set up things to really get to that level of trying to be perfect. But we're in competition because we got things like artificial intelligence running around. A lot of these platforms you'll go on, it's a fake avatar that's talking. You can sometimes even hear it in the voice. It's not a real authentic voice. So this world we live in at the moment, and I'm going to call it the artificial intelligence world, we need to realize something that what people crave the most is not artificial nothing. They don't crave artificial intelligence. What people are really starving for is absolute raw, unfiltered human experience. So what does that mean, Dion? What does raw, unfiltered human experience means? I had a conversation with a couple of coaches over the last few days, and every single one of them that since lockdown has gone virtual, that's gone on camera, every single one of them are talking about getting back onto a platform, going live again, going to a event where they can interact, communicate with real people. There's a massive, massive hunger worldwide. This is not just South Africa. There's a massive hunger for that true, authentic, unfiltered, and the key is in unfiltered human experience. So here's something I want you guys to understand. Most people, or coaches, or speakers, or people in our industry, when you talk to them about that real human experience, fear kicks in. And they very often tell me, yes, but I'm not ready yet. I'm not there yet. So I'm going to make a statement, and I'm going to make a couple of statements tonight. So I hope you guys are ready for a couple of bombs, if I can call it that. So here's one of the statements I want to say. What if I told you that that very thing that you're trying to hide, your struggle, your imperfections, your unvarnished outside, that which you think is not good enough for the real world out there. What if that is, in fact, most probably, and I'm fairly certain it is, your greatest competitive advantage? What if your struggles, your imperfections, is that unfiltered human experience that everybody's longing for? So, today we're obviously going to dive into why authenticity isn't just a feel good kind of a fluff statement we need to make. I want to dive in and really ask a simple question. How does it impact me? Can it impact me, my business? Is it something that can transform me? So here's a statement I want to make, another little bit of a truth bomb. Your authenticity isn't just feel good fluff. It's a strategic business advantage that can transform your impact and your income. And you've got to realize that. If you understand your own authenticity, if you understand the real you, it can transform the impact you make. And when I say the impact you make, the question is, where do we make this impact? In the real world with real people. So let's go back. Remember those invisible cages we spoke of last time, a week ago? We need to realize that there's one single cage that's probably, I don't want to know if I should use the term larger or stronger, but one of those two terms, whichever one you think is right. There's one of these cages that's either larger or stronger than all the other cages combined. And that's the cage of perfectionism. Can I say that again? There's one cage that is holding you back from becoming the best version of you, from becoming limitless. And that's the cage of perfectionism. You see, it's that belief that you've got to have everything figured out before you can really help other people. So, are you ready for a truth bomb statement? Next one. Perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear wearing a tuxedo. Perfectionism is terror dressed up as excellence. We somehow programmed I hope that sunk into some of you guys. We somehow programmed ourselves that for me to be able to coach someone else, for me to be able to get onto a platform, run an event, be phenomenal, do a keynote talk, go onto a platform like this and deliver a talk for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever. I need to be at a certain level of perfectionism. I need to have reached a certain goal. Guys, that's a belief that you've allowed to creep in, and that's nothing more than just a cage. It's a tuxedo, it's something on the outside that when we look at the concept of perfectionism, we think it looks good. But what it really is, if you really take off the suit, it's nothing else but fear. It's just a fear. It's a fear that's dressed up and looks from the outside as if it's all made pretty and it's all perfect. That tuxedo is not required. Now, some of you guys are really waiting to launch a program. But you've kind of gone through in your own brain, and this is the lie we tell ourselves. Because I know I started as a trader a few years ago. I've run programs, I've launched new courses, and I watched a video many years ago, and someone said something, and the lie stuck in my head. And this is a lie that some of you guys have got running around your head. And that is before I can offer my program, I need to ensure that I've handled all possible objections. Come on. I know some of you guys have done that. Before I can launch a program, and you've probably watched a video where someone is training about running workshops or webinars. And one of the things, and I've seen a lot of these training courses, one of the things that comes through is handle all objections, run the course a few times, get to objections, and in the next one, make sure you cover all the possible objections. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been training a single course for 17 years. I started in 2008. I've run the same course almost every single month for all of these years. And here's something that I've learned. There is no way that you're going to cover all of the objections. It's just not going to happen. The second biggest lie, so number one is I've got to cover all the objections. The second biggest lie that creeps in with that perfectionism lie is the one that I'm holding back to raise my prices to what I'm worth until I feel I'm an expert or a good enough expert in my field. I speak to so many coaches. I train them and then I speak to them 6 months later and I say, "Are you coaching?" "Yes, I'm coaching." "Are you charging?" "No, I'm not charging yet." Or I'm charging an entry level. I'm charging a very low fee. Dion, I just want to practice and really get to that point where I really feel that I've got everything together. So I just want to practice it a little bit more. Doesn't work that way in reality. If you are going to wait for that moment where you feel that you've got it all together to raise your price, to start delivering at a fee that you are worth, you need to understand something. That moment is never going to arise. You're never going to get there because it doesn't matter how good you are, your brain always knows that there's another level of growth. So if you are looking at the moment from wherever you are, you're saying, well, I need to get there to be perfect, or I need to get there to that expert level. What you don't realize is as you move towards it, that goal of what is great moves with you. Even if you start right at the bottom and you go to absolute mastery, world-class level, there's still going to be people that's better than you. There's still going to be a next level that you need to achieve, that you want to achieve. And if you're going to wait for that level, you're not going to get out of the blocks here. It's absolutely critical to realize that this is a lie, a cage you've created. This is not full truth. In fact, this level of perfection that you're waiting for, that level of expert enough or good enough, that never really happens because as humans, we've got a natural ability to feel we're never ever really that good. We've got a natural humility. We've got a natural level of imposter syndrome, if you want, where some voice in our head is going to say, "I'm not good enough." That's going to be there for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter which level you get to. That level that you think you need to get to is always going to be just ahead of you. It's never going to be in the present. The day you think it's here, it's right now, I highly suggest you check your ego because then something has gone amiss. You've lost something in your authenticity. This is my second podcast that I'm doing. It's a live stream. Before this, I've never done live streaming like this. I was very nervous. I looked at other podcasters and I went, wow, these guys are extremely professional. They like leap years ahead of me. And I knew when I did my first one, and I knew tonight before I did this one, that I am not there where I am supposed to be. I'm very much aware of it. But I also know that this is an ambiguous goal. This is not a tangible, achievable. This is a movable goal. Not good enough. Good enough is always going to be just outside of your reach because that's what propels us forward. It's that desire to become better. That's what creates the initial motion. And why we need courage is to step in and start acting and continuously go on this path of constant development. So, are you ready for the next truth bomb? You're not protecting your reputation by being perfect. You are suffocating your own potential impact. Can I say that again? You are not protecting your reputation by being perfect. You are suffocating your impact. The world does not need your perfection. Get over yourself, please. What it needs is your progression. Perfection is a hallucination. Progression is mastering reality. So, are you guys okay with the concept to realize that you are never going to have the correct or the fullness of all the credentials you need? Your reality, your journey, and I'm going to add this in because I want to talk about this. Even your struggles that you are going through is part of that progression that's required. In fact, your struggles, and a lot of coaches believe this, they think their struggles disqualify me. I often get people that want to come on my training courses and become coaches or NLP practitioners, and they ask me, this is my story, Dion. Do you think I can become a coach? Your story cannot disqualify you. Your story, in fact, becomes your credentials, becomes your qualification. It's those scars that you've earned through life. That's not a sign of weakness. Those scars you've earned, that's proof of your strength. That's not your shame, that's your superpower. That's what is waiting. I want to use the term to be unleashed. That story that you've gone through that's created scars, that's created even shame in your life, that's created a state of discomfort, that's created a sense of I'm not worthy because of my past. That story, that's your superpower that's waiting to be unleashed. That's a tremendous, magnificent ability that's contained in a cage that you've made up in your own mind. And that cage needs to break open so the real you can step out and become the amazingness that you've been created. So I'm going to say this again. Your struggles are your superpowers, but there's a condition to that. See, that condition is only if you own them. See, what we try and do, we try and look at our struggles as something that's made me a victim. Now, the difference between a victim and a victor is not what happens to us, it's what we decide to become because of it. Can I say that again, please? The difference between a victim and a victor isn't what happens to us. It's who we decide to become because of what happens to us. It's who we decide. You see, the difference, the differentiation maker here is an active choice. It's a decision. It's not what happens to me, it's what have I learned on this journey. So ask yourself the question and take ownership for your own process. Take ownership of your own story. Acknowledge your own struggles and ask yourself this question. What challenges have you overcome that you could share that will connect with your ideal client? Now, if you're listening to this, there's a high probability that you want to be a coach, a speaker, a trainer, an events coach, someone in the transformational personal development industry. So let me tell you guys a little bit of a secret, and I'm going to share something personal about my own life. When I entered this industry, I went through training, and I am going to say this, it wasn't very practical training. A lot of it was theory. I sat in the classroom. I had a phenomenal trainer. She had the world of wisdom. I called her Beautiful Mind because I was mesmerized through all the training. But I didn't have the opportunity to practice the techniques and the processes that I was taught. So I had to really go out into this big world and just start doing what I was trained and hope that it is going to work. And I was nervous. I was petrified. I was really scared. And then at some stage, I made a decision. No, not only am I going to be a coach and an NLP practitioner, I'm going to become a trainer. Now, here's the thing. I didn't go progressively into training. I didn't have a website. I burnt my bridges from my past. I resigned from all potential income streams and I started this business. I had 3 months' salary in my bank account. I didn't have a website. I had no potential clients. I had no leads. I had absolutely nothing. And I had to dive in deep. I was petrified. Man, was I petrified. But I knew that every little 1 millimeter, 1 second, 1 minute, every element of my entire life, from the day I was born up until that moment, was preparation for the next leap of faith, for the next, let me take this courageous jump and let me call myself a trainer. Let me get some form of accreditation because I've done the training, but I've got zero practical experience as a trainer. But let me leap in and just do it. Now, here's what's interesting. The very first group that I trained, I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago to one of them. Well, not the first group. I spoke to someone I think was in the second or the third group or something. But the first groups that I trained, I remember the very, very first group. My course was 21 days, and I started training. Man, I was enthusiastic. I had a manual prepared, and I wrote a whole lot of stuff, and I was really, really, really feeling fantastic. I've got a great course. It's going to run over 21 days. I'm going to mesmerize these people with all my knowledge. I think it was around about day 8 or 9. I realized I've got 1 or 2 days of content left in the manual. I worked through everything and I had no more content. I made one of the largest, biggest mistakes any trainer can make. I had a certain amount of hours I had to fill, and my content was about 50% or enough, sufficient to fill 50% of that time frame. Was that a lesson learned? Oh, absolutely. So what did I do? Well, very simple. I would train the whole day, and then after class, I would literally jump on Google. This is honestly what I did. I would jump on Google, open a Word document. I would read stuff. I would write till late hours, and I will create a concept to teach the next day, print it out. I had 4 students in the classroom. I printed out 5 copies, one for myself and one for each student. And the next morning, when the students arrived, I would hand them in. I said, "These are extra notes." They didn't know the difference. I faked it until I made it. These are extra notes that we are going to cover today. And then I would teach whatever concept I figured out last night in the day. Here's the thing. Was that a struggle? Oh, yes, it was. Does this story give you courage? I hope so, because here's the thing we need to understand. Your mess isn't a mistake, it's your message. See, I made a mess when I started training, but that mess, I hope, has just inspired you to get out of your cage of your limiting belief. Because here's the thing, it's 17 years later. I'm still loving and I'm still passionate about what I do. If you ask me to train for 21 days now, I can train without a manual. Now, is there a difference between me now and 17 years ago? Oh, absolutely. I didn't have the knowledge then, but I took the courage, I leapt forward and I started. That's the secret. It's not waiting for perfection, it's starting. It's your superpower. It's your mistakes. It's the story that's behind you. It's the struggles you've gone through that you need to draw on. Because here's the secret. Once I finished that first course and I knew that I could come up with more than 10 days worth of content like that, I knew nothing's going to stop me. Today, I don't only have my core training that I do, I've got a huge amount of extra courses that I have built over the years. I've written a few books in the meantime. I'm constantly creating new information, new lessons. Where does that come from? It comes from the first and probably the biggest mistake I've made in my career by not having even half the content of a course. Whatever mistakes you've made, don't be scared of them and don't be shy of them. You see, that breakdown is not your end. It's your breakthrough ready to happen. Can we say that again? That breakdown that I had when I realized, oh my word, I don't have enough content. That moment, when I look at it in hindsight, I realized that was probably the best moment of my life because that gave me so much courage when I had no option and I had to create content for the next couple of days. That filled me with it made me unbreakable. It made me unshakable. I love that word. It's Fred by Traders, of course, unshakable coach. It made me a conqueror. Your story, your mistakes, your faux pas you've had. Those are your superpowers. I don't care what happened to you. Some people, we're living in a very, very strange time at the moment where finances are critical. I mean, I speak to so many people and I coach them, they say, but I went bankrupt. I'm so shy about it. Guys, the worst thing, if you think it's bankruptcy, I don't care if you've gone bankrupt. I want to know, did it teach you financial resilience and how did it teach you that? And can you teach me that? I don't care if you struggle with anxiety. There's a huge amount of people around this world that are struggling with anxiety. I want to know you're struggling with anxiety, but then I also want to know, how did you overcome it? What is your coping mechanism? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? How are you managing that anxiety? Because anxiety very often is like a disease that attaches itself to you and you kind of carry it for the rest of your life. But people learn to cope with it. And I want to know how. I don't want you to hide the fact from me that you've had anxiety. That's not going to excite me. What's going to excite me is the fact that you've overcome it. The very thing that most people are ashamed of is most probably the exact thing that makes you most qualified to serve others. Your greatest pain are often, very often, points to your purpose, points to your authentic purpose, points to your greatest purpose. Your biggest pain, your biggest fear, your biggest thing that you feel shy about in your background is very often that one single thing that should catapult you into your magnificent future. One story I often tell in my classrooms is the story about what I did before I entered this industry. I, I, I'm going to say it very simply. I was really good at going into companies and firing a lot of people, destroying lives. I remember the one case, there was a husband and a wife worked for the same company, and I was asked to go in and restructure and bring a turnaround. And those years I used to justify it. I said, I find the dead wood and I prune it. No, these were human beings and I was firing them instead of looking at them and trying to find a way to reinvest in them and upskill them. It was a matter of, let me cut you out, let me get you out, save that money, get someone else in that can do the job better than what you can. I was ruthless. I was a horrible human being. If I met myself today, I would probably not want to have a conversation with myself. I don't like the human being I used to be, but I had the epiphany, I had the wake up call, and I look at my background and parts of my life that I'm ashamed about, and I realized, you know what? That epiphany, that deep understanding of pain, of the struggles that people go through, that's my superpower. That's what gives me the edge. So share your struggles, share the lessons you've learned, the transformation. But there's a secret behind that. There's a difference in sharing your struggle and sharing the gory details of it, if that makes any sense. In other words, there's a line between sharing your vulnerabilities and not sharing the fact that you're a victim. Because if people see you as traumatized, they are not going to be drawn to you. But if they see you as transparent, as vulnerable, and as authentic, then there's going to be a very, very strong connection. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what is it that makes me different? What is it what's the struggle I've gone through? What is the transparency I have? What's the difference about me that makes me valuable? Because I spoke about this earlier. I said we're living in this world where There's too much AI, there's too much artificial, and there's too many people trying to be perfect. And one of the things that we do with trying to be perfect is we look at other people that we think is perfect and we try and copy them. Ladies and gentlemen, we're living in a world of copies. We're living in a world of millions of fake copies. And what most people don't realize, and you can hear the emotion in my voice when I talk about this, the world is not looking for another perfect copy. The world is really looking for originals that are priceless. Your weirdness, your authentic weirdness, it's not a weakness. That's your wealth happening or waiting to be discovered. I like that statement. I'm going to repeat it. Your weirdness is a weakness. It's your wealth waiting to be discovered. So, how weird can you be? What do people say about you? What is it that when people talk about you or to you about you? Because everybody's got people that talk to, I've got a wife, I've got children, I've got friends, and they talk to me. I've got students, I've got colleagues, I've got a huge amount of people that I communicate with. And if you listen carefully, people will always give you an opinion about you. That's one thing about this world. We love verbalizing our opinion to other people. So let's learn to listen. So listen to what are people saying about you. And listen to the positive and listen to the constructive as well. Listen to both of them. And listen to what they say about you. Then ask a simple question. What are you noticing that you do differently than others? Now, for me, it's a very simple thing. I've listened to the way people talk, and the one thing that's kind of been very clear. There's two or three, but I'll maybe mention the first two. So the one thing that people have said to me repeatedly over the years is I can take a complex concept and tell it in a story and make it simple and understandable for most people. So, okay, taking a complex thing and making it simple. So I'm a storyteller. I like that. I'm comfortable with that. I can wrap a career around that. I can wrap that identity around me, and I can move with that. The second thing is I'm a typical father. I'm a father to everyone. I want to father everyone. I want to protect everyone. I want to guide everyone. I want to mentor everyone. I just want to be that person for everybody. And I've got no problem with that because I do believe I've got the heart of a father. So for me, it was very easy. I could listen to people and I could ask, okay, well, what makes me different? What is my uniqueness? And one of them is, you talk a lot. I think by now, if you know me by now, you'll know I cannot introduce myself in a minute. I need a long runway to get to a point. I unpack and I go into detail because I'm a teacher. So I want to dot all the I's. I want to cross all the T's. And if there's no T's, I'll draw a couple to make sure I can cross these T's. I go into detail and I talk a lot and I talk long. And I know this because I've been married for 40 years and my wife often she'll say to me, get to the point. Can you land? I get you. I hear you. And I'm comfortable with that because that's part of who I am. But I've not taken it as a negative criticism. I've taken that as constructive, as positive. And I said, okay, well, how does this apply to who I am, what I do for a living? And this platform, me teaching and sharing knowledge, my talk a lot serves me. Your uniqueness serves you. Your weirdness serves you. Learn to identify it, embrace it, and realize that's your world of wealth that's waiting to be discovered. You've got it. They need it. Be you. You are a unique creature. Be that uniqueness. It's like building a puzzle with 8 billion pieces in, and there's only one space for you where you fit in. If you're going to try and fit into someone else's space, the puzzle cannot be complete. You've got to find your unique spot. And the moment you do, that's when the puzzle becomes complete. So become the person that can make a difference by realizing your uniqueness. So, and I know some people are going to say, yeah, but Dion, people say, I'm too much. Well, th that's possible. For a lot of people, I'm too much. But you know what? There's a certain group of people for whom you are just right. So stop dimming your light to make other people comfortable in their darkness. Bombshell. Stop dimming your unique light so that other people can be comfortable in their darkness. Start embracing the fullness and magnificence of you. Because you know what? For a huge amount of people out there, you are just right. So how do we do that? Well, number one, you need to reframe the negative thoughts, the negative language in your head. So some people, when I coach people, they say to me, "But I can't do that, Dion. I'm too direct." That's a statement we hear. Or I'm ruthlessly honest. In Afrikaans, people, ek's onbeskof eerlik. I'm ruthlessly honest. No, you're not. Reframe it. Ask yourself, what's the benefit? Well, let me give you a reframe. You're a person that cuts through the BS and you get straight to the results. Well, let's flip that around. Some people might say, I'm too emotional. I can't, Dion. When I talk to people, I'm an empath and I get very emotional and I want to cry with my clients. I get really, really, emotional with them. I don't know if I can do this whole coaching thing. Well, let's reframe that. You connect on a deeper level than purely the logical coaches. Guys, it doesn't really matter what your uniqueness is. There's an audience that desperately needs it. Some people might say, "Yeah, but I'm a weirdo. I dye my hair purple and pink, and I've got earrings and studs and tattoos and all kinds of things, and I'm way too unconventional for the average." Really? Could it be that you offer a fresh perspective in a stale industry? That you bring excitement and vibrancy to the mundane? It doesn't matter what lie you've told yourself. It's time to break out of that cage and become the most authentic version of you. Now, I know some people are going to say, "Oh, it's too much." Guys, I'm not someone that does well in frivolous conversations. I don't do well at most social events because in reality I'm extremely serious and I very often have got a very serious look on my face because I go deep into thought. I'm a philosopher, I'm a thinker, I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer. So my brain, and I've trained it over the years, is very focused on where I am and where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. I'm extremely focused in life. And for a huge amount of people, I'm too much. I'm too much. And I know that. But here's the secret. I also know that for a certain audience, I am finally enough. You see, for some, I'm too much. For others, I'm finally enough. It's not a matter of me being either one of these. It's me being authentic to who I am. And through that, I can allow my audience to connect with me. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't tone down your edge, tune it up. Don't tone down your authenticity, embrace it, amplify it. Your goal is not to be liked by everyone. That's just not going to happen. It's to be loved by the right ones. So a while back, we had this whole thing in our society. We shouldn't polarize. Guys, polarization is not a problem. It's not your problem. It's your superpower. I don't want to be liked by everyone. I would much rather be loved by the right group of people. It's a very simple concept. So for me to be loved by the right group of people, I've got to show up as my fullness of my authentic self. Is that all right? Now, I want to go back to something. I touched on something earlier, and I just need to, again, I dot the I's and cross the T's. That's who I am. I want to talk about sharing your vulnerabilities and using your transparency, authenticness is powerful. But it's about right sharing. It's not about, how do I put it nice? We shouldn't bleed on people who didn't cut you. Don't tell your story in a way that the people in your presence feels as if they're part of what created the problem. In other words, I am going to show people my scars, not so they feel my pain. I want to show them my scars so that they can see that healing is possible. So there's a fine line when we become vulnerable. There's a fine line when we become transparent. It's not me taking my weight and placing it on the shoulders of everybody else. It's me showing people that I can become stronger because of it. I hope that makes sense to some of you guys. Now, the reason I say this is because a lot of us, we kind of wear armor. We wear masks and we put on a coat of protectiveness, a shield. We build walls that people cannot penetrate to connect with us on a very, very authentic level. And we think that armor protects us from judgment. That armor doesn't protect you from judgment. That armor prevents true connection. You cannot be invulnerable and influential at the same time. You cannot be Superman and a man. You cannot be Wonder Woman and a woman at the same time. You cannot be invulnerable and influential at the same time. Choose one. Either wear a mask fully and be fake, or take the mask off, be real. Don't bleed onto people, but show them your scars so that they can be enthused by it, so that they can see this person has gone through it, they've healed, they've come out on the other side. I can learn from them. There's something in this person that I can learn from. And you'll pick up in your own words when you talk to potential clients, and I hear this from coaches very often, they will have an introduction call with someone. And I actually had this conversation with a coach in now over the weekend. And they said, well, what if I'm not a right fit for the client? Now, a lot of coaches would talk to a client and say, well, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. I can refer you to something else. No, 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 no. Everything in this industry is learning. It's progressing. If a client is not the right fit for you today, you got to bridge that gap. You've got to become the right fit, and we become the right fit through applying courage, through doing something that we haven't done before. So if I get a client that comes with a completely new challenge that I've never coached anybody on, I'm not going to say that I'm not the right fit for you. I want to say to them, this is a very interesting scenario, and here's what I do know, and then I'll tell them a story, and I'll relate to something somewhere where I can draw from. You know, if someone tells me a story, I'll give you a quick example. I had a conversation with someone the other day, now again, about 2 weeks ago, and they've got cancer. I've got a growth in my brain, and I can go, oh yeah, me too. It's terrible. I said to them, I've got a growth in my brain, but here's what I learned. So when I say don't show people your cut, give credibility in your story, admit that you've gone through the struggle, but start immediately going towards how do you heal, how do you heal, how do you heal? Because that's what people need. Should I share my struggle? I think yes, but don't diminish your authority. Demonstrate your humanity, but don't diminish it. There's a difference. So why do we want to demonstrate our humanity? Well, people buy from people, and people don't buy from perfect personas. People buy from people. Humans buy from humans. They don't buy from perfect personas, but people buy from people that's got something to offer. So if you're a coach and you've gone through a challenge in your life and you've overcome it, show people your scars that you've come through it and you've survived, you've made it on the other side. That's what they're going to buy. So when you're feeling vulnerable, and we all have that feeling, we all feel vulnerable from time to time, but we get through it. So when I teach coaches, I know I felt vulnerable at one stage. But the fact that I know that I felt vulnerable at one stage as a coach, as a trainer that didn't know what he was doing, and I've gone on a journey, that knowing that gives me courage, gives me permission to speak, and that creates a safe environment for new coaches when they come in so that they don't feel as vulnerable. So, what am I trying to say through that? Real truth is not built on perfection. Trust is not built on perfection. Authenticity is not built on perfection. It's built on transparency. It's built on the fact that we can be flawless. And inside of that flawlessness, people must be able to see it. But here's the key. They must see that I am fearless with my flawlessness because that makes me real. I hope that makes sense. Because if we do that, we allow people to come in. If I take that shield that's protecting me, that fake shield, if I can take that off and I can show my vulnerabilities to a certain degree, I don't want to bleed on people, but I want to show my wounds and I want to show that I've overcome it because that makes me the empath and that makes me more approachable. If I can share that, my connection becomes more important than the perfection I'm seeking. That amazing connection that I'm building with my clients becomes my power. See, right now we live in a society, and I'll call it the attention economy. Everybody's looking for how many likes can I get, how many follows can I get, how many eyeballs can I get on my page, on my post, how much this can I get. Ladies and gentlemen, let everybody else fight for eyeballs. I would much rather fight for hearts. I would much rather spend the bit of energy I have to win people over for a deep connection than what I run around and try and impress the masses without true connection. For me, I'm not impressed by just getting noticed. I'm impressed by being remembered. Perfection gets you admired from a distance. If you're pushing for perfection, other people will look at you and they'll admire you. But here's the secret, and I said this, they're going to admire you from a distance. If I'm vulnerable and authentic, I allow people to come in. In other words, now I can be loved up close. To me, that's by far more powerful. So here's my question to you. I hope you guys are ready to start getting out of your comfort zones, getting out of your limiting beliefs. So here's a challenge for you. What's really behind your struggle or your success? Now, that was quite a challenging statement or question when I asked it. And the reason I asked it is because as a coach, as an influencer, as someone that is in the personal development industry, if you're a speaker, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're an events organizer, if you're an admin assistant in the back office, it doesn't really matter who you are. You've got to learn an attitude of curiosity about people. And if you're curious about people, it's not about what you see on the surface. It's really who's the person behind what you see on the surface. So for me as a coach, I want to know two stories from my clients. I want to know who's the person behind your successes and who's the person behind your struggles. What does that person look like? How real is that person? And the only way I can really find that person so that I can lower my shield and get them to lower their shield so we can have authentic connection is by giving them everything I've got. Be fully present. Put down your cell phone, switch off your laptop, close everything else, close the doors, and listen and focus and look at that person. learn to connect authentically, because the moment we start connecting with authentic people and we connect on an authentic level, our shields dissolve. If I connect with a fake person, if I connect with someone else that's only trying to be perfect and wearing a mask, my shield gets strengthened because our brain has got what's called copy neurons in them, and it copies the behaviors of others. So authentic relationships are extremely powerful in our industry simply because they compound over time. And that's how we build a beautiful depth of magnificent connections. And that's where, at this stage, after so many years in this industry, where 90% of all my clients come from, it's because of those authentic connections, relationships has been built. And that's just become the most amazing experience. So I touched on the mirror neurons, and I just want to just mention that quickly. So when you're in the presence of someone else, there's a mirror neuron. Now, mirror neurons, as if you're an empath, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm smiling about that because empaths, we've got a lot of mirror neurons. If someone is telling us their story about their pain, man, we feel that pain. We feel that pain. But here's the interesting thing about it. If someone's telling me about their story and I feel the pain, but they also tell me that they've gotten through it, that they've come out on the other side, that they've become victorious, that becomes a blueprint I want to follow. That's inspiring. That's leadership. That's amazing. That's something that builds loyalty. It's not the fake shields or the strive to perfectionism that builds lasting brands. It's that deep authenticity. So I want to leave you guys with a little bit of a concept here, and I want this to sink in, especially if you're a coach. Your vulnerability merged with your value is what's going to be what's become your influence. So, how do you influence people? Understand what your vulnerability is, understand what your value is, what's the lessons you've learned from it. Then look at what are the struggles you've gone through, what are the solutions you found with them, and that becomes your signature story. So, whatever you're vulnerable about and the value you bring, that's the influence you can create. And whatever struggle you've gone through with a solution, that's your signature story. So that's going to draw clients to you, and your influence is going to bring them to the point where they want to, really want to become amazing. So another way of looking at that is you can take the mess of your life. What's your biggest mess you have in your life? Take your message, merge those two. Ask yourself truly, what is your mission in life? And well, there's your goal plan, there's your mission, there's your millions, there's your mission or the target that you're going through. Not financial millions, but millions of possibilities that's going to be unlocked. So I really hope some of you guys are getting the concept where I'm going to. So I've got 4 questions I'm going to ask, and I'm going to close for this session. Question number 1. Are you ready for this? What are you pretending to be that you are not? In other words, where are you wearing masks? Look at a social events, in the work environment, in front of clients, in front of your partner, in front of family members, in every scenario. If you go to Checkers and you're standing in a queue and someone says something, how do you respond? Ask yourself, what are all the masks you wear? You need to have that awareness, because only if you know what you are pretending to be can you remove the mask in that circumstances and become the authentic you. You've got to take the mask off, and the only way to take the mask off is by identifying the fact that you're wearing a mask. So, what are you pretending to be that you are not? Number 2, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? In other words, what struggle are you experiencing that could become a strength? What are you hiding that could possibly help other people? Take that mask off, take that shield off, become authentic. Number 3, what makes you different? Specifically, what makes you different that you're trying to minimize? In other words, what is that edge you've got, that differentiating factor, that amazingness in you that you're trying to dull and play down and hide behind? What is that? What is that? In my case, I talk too much. I know. What is that difference that you're trying to minimize? Instead of minimizing, and I mentioned this earlier, it's time to amplify. And number four, where are you choosing perfection over connection? Can we say that again? Where are you choosing perfection over connection? Remember what I said. Perfection can only be admired from a distance, but true connection wins hearts and souls of people and brings in clients. So those four questions is your challenge for this week. So I want you guys to remember one last statement as I close off tonight. Safety is the most dangerous place to live because your safety zone, your comfort zone, is where dreams go to die and your potential goes to waste. Your comfort zone is not your friend. Your comfort zone is that cage, that prison that you've created. Authenticity, realness is your choice. It's a daily decision every day. It's become unlimited. I'll see you guys soon. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening. Next week, same time, right here.